you pay me. And I feel like every creative should adopt that, because it is so frequently that creatives are not accurately compensated for their creativity. And you should never shortchange yourself, and you should always demand your worth. And so fuck you, pay me is just a beautiful mantra to make sure that you get what's yours.
Hello and welcome to the Creative Lotus Podcast. On this week's episode, we have Heartthrob Robb, rapper ROB.B A. What's up?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the podcast. So you also go by Heartthrob Robb, correct?
Correct, yes.
Awesome. So I always start out every episode just asking each creative kind of where were you born and raised, so people kind of get to know you, and what was kind of like your childhood like growing up, which then ultimately brought you to Los Angeles here to become the artist and musician that you are now.
Well, I'm originally from San Diego, Southern California, born and raised.
Nice.
Sunny disposition. I grew up, I didn't have the easiest childhood, to be perfectly fair, but it kind of led me in the pathway that it did. Growing up, I grew up in let's say less than desirable conditions. Very modest, very humble beginnings. Both my parents had battles with addiction, and my dad was an artist, so he fought through his own turmoils and struggles. But with that being said, let me preface that there was no absence of love, or I grew up in a very, very loving household, very encouraging household, very supportive and nurturing household. With that mixture, of course I was going to find refuge in hip hop, something that was always found the beauty and the ugly in my perspective.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it's so cool. I was taking a look at your website, and, you, in your bio or where you wrote your kind of about you, you also shared that you kind of got into, both modeling as well as photography and kind of the creative arts, and, had never really thought of yourself as, kind of a musician or a rapper. So, what was the kind of the catalyst, I guess, actually from going from San Diego to LA? Was that primarily made because you wanted to get into quote unquote this industry, or if it was there was other kind of passions and desires that brought you here?
Well, to be perfectly fair, modeling kind of chose me. I didn't really find that myself. I took those glamour shots that every Latino had early on, and one of them fell in the hands of a photographer, and it just snowballed from there. He got me set up with my first modeling agency. Nice. My parents would drive me to LA for 15-minute casting calls. That's not a easy drive from San Diego. Right. And then I just started booking jobs. And although LA would be the obvious choice to move to, I actually ended up moving to San Francisco and New York, doing modeling, and I dabbled in music, and I grew up with a music background. I was always going to shows and hanging out with bands, and, always being an artist in general, painting, graphic design. I was doing their merch and doing their covers for their music. But because I was gay, I never really thought that there was even the slightest bit of chance that, someone like me would even be able to be accepted in the industry, or that there would be a place for my voice or a platform for me to excel. And to be perfectly honest, I just found a kindred soul, one of my best friends growing up, or not growing up, but coming into my own as a gay man, one of my first best friends. One late night, we were just drinking Heinekens and shooting the shit, and it was 3 a.m. And we both confided into each other that we both have this passion for music, and you know, I'd always wrote raps and stuff, like, you know, secret to me, you know, I like had journals of poetry and like was a creative writing like prodigy at my school. But we just got pissy drunk and then decided to book some studio time and cut some records together. We started off as a duo, Black Market, for those of you that followed me from then. And then he decided to dabble in pop music and went his own route, and I continued on with hip hop, and
nice.
We remained frequent collaborators throughout the years. But yeah, and hip hop has just always been my little mistress that I can't leave alone.
That's so awesome. Yeah. So I'm curious, kind of, you did share that you're gay as well. So how did that kind of affect your, not only your coming out story, but kind of the rap that you do is very kind of verbally kind of aware of who you are as a gay man, as an artist. So kind of, was your coming out process easy, and did that kind of just flow right into the rap that you started creating, or did it kind of take some time? I know that you just shared, you know, that you and your friend were collaborating together, but it sounds like you kind of jumped kind of full force right in with being kind of a gay artist, which is not easy for, you know, a lot of people that are out there.
Well, I mean, I was sure of who I was at an early age, so there was no going back in the closet for me. You know, I had already been like on like covers of gay magazines by the time I was like 18, and like was, you know, had I tried to go back in the closet, you know, there would have been like blackmail. You know, I was always very aware of things that could be used against me. So There was never going to be any hiding for who I was. And the adversity that, you know, is often used in rap, or at least the rap I was listening to at the time, hip hop was always a vehicle to conquer that. And being a gay man, I just empathize with that, you know, that let me put my struggle on wax. And honestly, I was trying to pay forward what hip hop had always done for me. And that was give a sense of honesty and transparency to, you know, things that might not be difficult, but also like the confidence, you know, like I grew up listening to strong artists, and like one of my favorite artists, Lil' Kim, who was always unabashedly herself and like such a powerful sex symbol that like she got so much flack coming out for speaking so like brashly and bold, and her image reflected that. And that's something that I admired and wanted to build myself to be as well. So yeah. No, I see the influences of Lil' Kim in your music, as well as, yeah, you're very out there and, you know, kind of like showing who you are authentically, you 100% of the time, which I think is so great. Because, yeah, too often a lot of artists kind of like have to hide under, you know, the parameters of what they think the music industry wants or what they should be. So the fact that you don't is so great. I'm curious, kind of, you know, this podcast is called the Creative Lotus Podcast, based on this idea of the simultaneity or cause and effect of the lotus flower blooming and seeding at the same time. But that can't happen unless like the shit underneath the water, right? This muck and nasty stuff going on, or the struggles, in human terms, kind of are leading to this blooming of the lotus flower itself. So I always ask every, you know, guest kind of, what are some struggles that you personally have had to go through, in order for you to kind of have this blossoming career, that you've had thus far? I mean, as I stated earlier, life was never relatively easy for me growing up. You often have to kind of put on a face, or, you know, I mean, not unlike LA in itself, you have to project a certain image to not be judged or not to be pigeonholed, right. Just in general. But I mean, you know, I was estranged from my family for a while because of my sexuality. Not my parents, because coming out to them was really easy and accepting, and they even encouraged my music right off the bat. My mom was such a big fan, just like so blown back by the fact that I was able to like make music. But ultimately it was, her passing, that kind of, I spiraled after that. You know, I was out partying and doing anything to just take my mind off of it. And then I just had this moment of, this isn't what she wanted for me. You know, I need to throw myself into what she loved about me. And that was my creative expression. And I've never been a big person on religion, clearly just because of all the negativity that it often comes with, especially in regards to what makes me me. But I was on my way to recording my first mixtape, and I had turned a poem that I wrote for her service into a song. And I had been kicking myself for weeks because, you know, moms are annoying. They call you and they leave all these voicemails. They're naggy. And I was on my way to record that song, and I found this hidden folder on my phone with a voicemail from her, and it was the perfect timing. And it seemed like music and the path that I was deciding to go in was so much bigger than me. And I was able to attach that voicemail, and still to this day, it's my greatest accomplishment, that song. My family hadn't really taken me serious as a musician. And then come to find out, my sister listened to it every morning going to work. Wow. My niece got it, like, my lyrics tattooed on her, like, and like for her to get a tattoo in the first place was like crazy. But, you know, and I mean, that just kept me going and carried me, even on my like lowest days. And then during that time, me and my father really started to connect, and he was completely enamored with what I was able to do for myself, because, you know, all the odds had been stacked against me. And even then he passed away a couple years after, and it still just kind of gave me the fight and the fire, because I'm such a second version, a second coming of my father. Stubbornness and creativity and all. Like, the older I get, the more I feel lucky to, you know, be a legacy, an extension of his creativity and his art. So, amazing. You know, adversity has always been my comfort zone in a way, because, you know, like, it's where I excel. You can't keep me down.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I think half the struggle or the battle, right, is to be able to take those struggles and that adversity and then turn it into something creative. I think, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, I should say, the song that you made for your mother is, Closer to My Dreams. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful, I was watching the video last night actually on YouTube, and I'll throw a link down below so people can watch it as well. But yeah, such an amazing tribute to your mom. And yeah, I know that losing any loved one is very difficult, but then to be able to turn that into something creative is quite incredible. So thank you for sharing. Yeah, both of those stories. So I always ask kind of, what do you consider to be maybe one of your greatest personal achievements, but maybe you're not necessarily known for as Heartthrob Robb, but something that you kind of really hold near and dear to yourself? Is
this still pertaining to music, or is this just something?
Yeah, whatever. For yourself or for your music, or yeah.
I mean, I pour myself into my music and like full force. And music has always been just an extension of me as a person or how I'm feeling. And it's really hard for me. I mean, I can write a song on a whim or with, you know, a prompt or, you know, with somebody, but mostly it's a way of me therapeutically releasing my feelings. So any track, even like my very confident or like raunchy, you know, songs are always just an extension of me. So there's nothing but truth for most part in a lot of my music. So every time I accomplish a song, I feel very happy that I'm able to share such a vulnerable, any emotion is like shared to the world is vulnerable, even if it's mad. So, anything with music is an accomplishment to me, and especially to have been as well received as I had, because I do everything on my own. I write my music, I record my music, I shoot the music videos, I edit the music videos, I send out like all the press release. Like, having a manager is fun and all, but like I have to have my hand in the pot. So I'm always really proud of where anything goes, because it's usually all me. But outside of music, anything I do that's creative, like painting or, you know, I love it all. Art has just always been home to me. Like, I grew up, I drew my yearbook cover for my like 8th grade class, and like,
nice.
You know, like, I don't know. I spill my heart into everything. So anything artistic.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. So you kind of mentioned like Little Kim was an influence. Who else do you kind of get, maybe not inspiration from, but, the influences that you kind of have shaped you as an artist, so far?
I mean, musically, I grew up like with a heavy influence of East Coast hip hop. So there's always going to be some Biggie, some Nas, some Jay. There's just such a raw, gritty, beautiful, cleverness, you know, and like, there's something really sexy about East Coast rap, especially from like the 90s, that like, it really did shape me. But like, I grew up like with influences like Common, where they were like able to like, it wasn't just like the nitty gritty, you know, there was a poetry and a reflectiveness to a lot of their music. I mean, there's so many MCs that I could name. Kim is definitely the biggest. Yeah. Just, I don't know, just as a young little gay boy, like she kind of encapsulated everything. Female rappers from that same era too. So I feel like Foxy and Missy for sure. Missy definitely, the visuals.
Incredible.
In your face.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I think growing up being born in the late 80s and then, you know, living in the 90s, I feel like, all of those artists that you just mentioned were such a big influence just on music in general. So kind of how could you not? And Missy Elliott was such a visual artist and still is, you know, and so creative. So, I love the music videos that you do produce, and, you know, you talking about how you kind of do everything yourself. I can totally relate. Doing this podcast is definitely like a one-man band. So you definitely, you know, have your hand kind of involved in all the creative aspects of it, which is kind of a great thing, but it's also, I'm sure you probably get tired of having to do it all yourself at times too. So, I
mean, even if I could outsource, I would still be so heavily involved in it. The last time I did have someone do one of my music videos, I ended up scratching it and just taking the footage and re-editing it myself, because I can be a hard person to please sometimes.
No, I get it. I mean, as an artist, I think you do have to see your vision all the way through. And so, you know, it's great to have collaborators, but I personally find, and I don't know about yourself, but it's hard to like just give up the reins, if you will, to kind of other people to kind of do things, especially when it's who you are as an artist and it represents you. So, so this, I always say this, and it kind of sounds like an interview question for a job or something, but what do you consider to be your greatest weakness, personally and musically? And then when those weaknesses come up, how do you kind of, overcome them quickly if you recognize them in the moment?
I would say being a perfectionist might be my biggest weakness, just because I'll toil over something until even way past like need be. I like something could be great and I'll redo it like 5 times and then end up circling back to like the first version and be like, okay, that was great. Why couldn't I just like let it go? Or like, in that same aspect, I'll procrastinate because of my perfection. But like I have this dope single that like I was ready to release right before the pandemic. And like, it was so good. And I was ready to release it. And then the pandemic happened and I still haven't released it, which is really funny because it's actually like, not to stroke my own ego, but it's like been so far ahead of what's been going on. That's like, I'm like, oh, I should have released that but in that same magnitude, like I released my song What's Your Life like 4 years after I recorded and released it and re-released it. Wow. And then I ended up getting put on like, it was my first feature on Billboard for it. So like, you know, sometimes you are ahead of the curve. And so I would imagine that the same thing is happening this time around, hopefully. Now that I feel like I'm ready to put my hat back in the ring, musically, or like I have like a bunch of beats that I've been sitting on for like the last year that I just like haven't got around to because, you know, I haven't felt what those songs require for me to like complete them, if that tracks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, when you don't feel like you're in it, and you kind of talked also about procrastination, and I'm like the biggest procrastinator ever. I get it. I'll be like sitting there, I'll be like, yeah, but I just need to like wait because it's going to get better like with time. And I'm like, no, just do the fucking thing. But I'm just curious, kind of like, how do you get yourself in that mindset so that you can just press record or, you know, press the send button or, you know, post something out there, when you don't really feel it? What's like the motivating factor for you?
Knowing me, and like, I can't beat myself up about not doing anything if I don't do it. Like, you can't win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket, right? So like, at that same time, I also know I step in my way because I'm like, if I'm gonna go at anything, it's gonna be full force. So when I'm ready to pull the trigger, and I feel like I'm ready again. So
nice. Very cool. So that kind of, since you brought it up, I'll just go into this question. I'm curious, like, you know, the pandemic obviously affected everyone in all different types of ways. Some people took it as a creative opportunity. Other people took it and, you know, it was kind of disastrous, obviously, with health issues, but then also just creatively, you know, they kind of didn't know what to do with it. So for you, kind of what was it that got you through, you know, 2020 up to 2022 at this point? And like you said, now you're ready to kind of like throw yourself back into the game. So I'm just curious kind of, what was going on then and kind of what got you through it.
I wish I could have said that I was one of those artists that, you know, was able to flourish during the pandemic. But honestly, the pandemic ate me alive. And I want to share that with other artists because not everybody, you know, I was so, not jealous because I was going through my own thing, but I admired those creatives that were able to take hold and take everything as it was going. For me, music had never been at a higher point right before the pandemic, and then everything got taken away from me. All of my shows got canceled, you know, all of my, you know, industry connections that I had like cultivated over the years, you know, all those people got let go from their positions, and you know, I just didn't have the space to record. I also like didn't feel like me. And again, to, you know, reemphasize, if I don't feel like the person that is behind the mic and is sharing these things, then like I can't create that content either. So I did start, you know, slowly creating music and doing everything I could to keep my head above water, but I absolutely drowned during the pandemic. It took me 2 years to get back on my feet. And then as soon as I was ready to like get shit popping again, I'm sorry, I don't know if I can cuss.
Yeah, you can. It's explicit.
Alrighty then. And then I got like injured. And so it's been definitely, it's been humbling, but also it's been eye-opening, just to kind of rediscover who I am. But I'm thankful for it all because I did write about a lot of those those really trying moments. Like I had bout after bout of depression, you know, through the pandemic, because I felt guilty for not continuously pushing myself to pursue something. And then I would beat myself up and just get into these really dark places, but they weren't places that I had been in such a long period of time that I didn't know how to use music as a stepping stone. And I also didn't want to be writing depressing music. I wanted to write happy music and, you know, but, you know, the pandemic came and went, a lot easier for some people than others, but we made it, or, you know, some of us did, whatever. But I'm happy to be able to have the opportunity to pick up kind of where I left off with, a more mature take on music. And I feel like the best is yet to come.
Amazing. Yeah, that's a great point of view and outlook toward the future. So absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, thank you so much for sharing your honest, you know, kind of struggle with the pandemic, because I do feel like, you know, social media is such like a fake place to live in, because everything is so polished and everyone wants to kind of, you know, procure these ideas. And so a lot of the pandemic, you know, 2021, 2020, and even this year, you know, it's still very like, everything just looks so great. And, you know, I know more and more people are talking about mental health and, you know, depression, and how, you know, people are making memes and kind of joking at it, but it's a real thing, you know? And so I think, you taking your time to kind of get yourself together and figure out what you need for yourself is really necessary as well. You know, so you're able, like you said, to kind of like move forward towards 2023, which is so weird to say that out loud, that this year is like coming to a close. But I'm curious, has there been, I know that you mentioned, you know, your career was really on the rise in 2019. And then obviously, like, I think everyone felt like 2020 is going to be the year. And then like, literally we all got shit on, as we all know. So, you know, what was there a moment before that, let's say, that you really felt like you had quote unquote made it? And kind of like, what was that or highlight of your career? And what was that like for you? And kind of how did you either celebrate that or what did that mean to you?
Getting to be featured on so many outlets and to be kind of just seen for the diligent work that I had put in up to that point, because there had been so many, you know, doors closed in my face over the years, you know, like so many labels had like said no, absolutely not before. When I had like first come out with my first mixtape, like I couldn't get like all the hip hop publications, The Source, Vibe, all of them said absolutely not. Interscope turned me away, you know, and a lot of them had told me straight up like, oh, gay rapper would never happen, blah, 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 blah. And this was like years before any of these artists have been able to, you know, have a mainstay in the industry. Right. And being able to have finally been on like Billboard, and, you know, getting the recognition and getting the shows. And, you know, I was booked almost like a solid full 2020 to like perform. I was so happy. I was working on new music. I was like being able to use music to benefit others, like throwing a showcase at the Viper Room to, you know, with nothing but gay hip hop artists, and being able to like pay forward the little bit of the success that I had in such a small, and, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it was a small way, but in as big of magnitude as I could, I felt, you know, on top of the world. And that's why I think 2020 happening just kind of really pulled the rug out from under me. I'm not a person that's able to, and like to this day, really appreciate some of the things that I've done and achievements that I've made, because I'm always so focused on like 2 or 3 steps ahead of where I am currently, which also is probably, to go back a couple questions, one of my biggest flaws is I can't actually absorb things. But I guess a highlight of 2020 was able to actually reflect on all that. But to have everything in such a good momentum made me feel like I was making it, and all of the love and well reception that I had received in regards to my music, just people reaching out, and it's the real small things, like when people are really graciously come up to me and appreciate, that means a lot to me, because that wasn't asked for. That's not a social media, not to say that, celebratory comments and stuff aren't genuine, but when someone pulls me aside and really just expresses like a genuine appreciation for something I do, I take that into full-heartedly. So that's what made me feel like I was making it, was feeling like I had everybody behind me. And that's also what kind of knocked the wind out of me during the pandemic, because it was like coming from such a high of like, everyone cheers for you when you're golden. And then the minute the shine wears off a little bit, it feels like you're kind of, shadow boxing out there by yourself. Right. Gone, but not forgotten, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's exactly. Yeah. No, that has to be difficult because, I do feel like, and especially in the music industry, I think more so than kind of anything else, like because you guys are putting out singles and putting out EPs or, albums and stuff, it's like, you're only known for your best achievement at the moment, but the moment that kind of goes away, it's like, does the fandom still keep going, and are people still there to support you, or do they magically kind of disappear until like the next thing, And so I'm sure that kind of is difficult to take in, and, and see it as kind of like, where are my people at? Where the fuck are you guys at when I need you the most, when I'm kind of going through it as well. So, yeah. So I'm curious kind of what brings you the most joy now, versus kind of maybe when you first started out, in the music industry and were kind of getting going, if there's any kind of differences that you've seen.
I mean, there are quite a few. I used to hate performing live, like, starting out, I like couldn't imagine like, I mean, I had been in front of crowds to a certain capacity. I had done runway shows and stuff, but I mean, like, you're a coat hanger on a platform essentially. Right. And, growing up, I did like a mild amount of like maybe performances, but really coming into my own with the stage presence and being able to like, put myself out there and just kind of drown it out and give myself to the mercy of the crowd is something that I have grown to love. And there's no bigger high than to be on stage and to look into the crowd and seeing someone going fucking ape shit to your music, and or just someone like didn't know you before, and like they're vibing and you're like, okay, like they're like, okay, I get it, I fuck with this. That's also being able to share the stage with people that I like, love, like other artists, and just I feel like that is such a beautiful thing, to be able to share that moment of like creativity, but like out loud, essentially, so that is definitely something that's changed over the years, and I'm proud of myself for being able to go out scantily clad and all and deliver a good show.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I do have to say, for the audience that's just listening, you're definitely not bad to look at, and you definitely bring a performance and body to the stage, every performance that you do. So, and your videos as well. And I think, I think it's kind of amazing that, that your artistry kind of, transcends this idea that like rappers have to be, baggy clothes, or this whole idea that you got to be like, fully, dressed up, if you will. But like, I mean, you bring the sex appeal to the stage for sure. So kudos to you to doing that, because I know that can't be easy, having an entire audience kind of watching you. So to get hyped off that, I'm sure is elating to be to say the least. So I'm curious, what is your kind of work ethic like? It sounds like you kind of got back into the rhythm of things. But kind of what is, Heartthrob Robb do on a day in the life of right now that you're kind of, getting the wheels going again, towards the end of this year now?
Well, I have, so I've had a couple projects all simultaneously going, and I think it's been the first time that I've just had so much not content. I hate that word. So much music, to work on. And I have got like 3 or 4 different projects that are in the work, and it's really hard for me to like focus on one. So I'm writing so many things as like that mindset pertains to that particular project. So I had like a bunch of like fun, upbeat music, but I wasn't fun, upbeat in here. So it was not able for me to translate or to even like pretend to have that much bravado or that like cockiness that those songs required. But one of the projects is very honest. It's a little dark, a little deep, especially compared to what I guess the songs that have really gotten people's attention. So I'm polishing those off right now, and I hope to have that out in the beginning of 2023. I was originally going to drop it at the end of this year, but I was scheduled for surgery, and since that's got pushed back or might not even be necessary, then I'm definitely coming out with it in the beginning of next year. It's going to be an EP. Nice. I haven't decided on how many tracks are yet, but I've got 4 or 5 of the songs pretty much done. I'm going to send them off to my engineer to, polish off and give it that nice little polish, that like cherry on top. But as far as my creative process goes, things just spill out of my head. Like my mind doesn't turn off. It's just all the time. And believe it or not, I get most of my inspiration or like most of my ideas or do most of my songwriting at the gym. Like while I'm like I'm working out, 'cause like I'm able to listen to the new beats, or like I'll write like a freestyle, like on the spot at the gym, like in my notes on my phone, like while I'm like doing cardio or something. Nice. And then I'll come home and then just bam, just get to work on it, Yeah. It's because my mind's going even like at a higher pace after getting my heart rate up. But yeah, so right now I'm just slowly getting back into that, going to the gym, getting focused on what I want to put out, and I got a lot of good shit in the works. So
that's exciting. Yeah, love it. Well, I look forward to when you do put it out. We can all cheer you on and listen to it. I look forward to hearing what you got going. So I'm curious, you did kind of mention that you were, you've done Pride shows and kind of, you, not to put labels on anybody, but, you kind of have this title of being kind of a gay artist and a gay rapper. And I think you've shared on social media as well that, there was some frustration that you've had, with kind of like the gay pride scene and gay artists and not getting the recognition and, support that they should be, in this arena that, is supposed to be very all about community. And it's seemingly not. So I'm curious kind of, you've already mentioned before that, you've gone to different labels and, they've said, no, there's no such, we don't want any, gay rappers. That's never going to happen type thing. But, how do you kind of, how do you take that on and how do you just like keep on going forward with it? And, having this title of, being gay as like, a label on you, do you find it difficult? And at times, do you feel like you should, maybe like take it off, or are you kind of proud to wear that?
Well, okay. So like to keep it real funky, I am like I'm me to the truest extent. And, you know, like being a gay man is, you know, whether I like it or not is going to be a quality of mine that people are just going to be very aware of. And I make music for the gay community, you know, straight up. Like I never pretend to be anything I'm not. I never tried to go back in the closet. You know, I had a bunch of friends when I was younger who were actors and models, and they all went back in the closet and like to further career. And I never ever sought that for myself. Like I was so sure of myself at such a young age, and I want to make sure that, you know, the younger generation has that same comfortability and that same disregard for trying to fit in or trying to be somebody else. So like never in my like wildest dreams did I imagine that I'd be able to have any kind of mass appeal or like crossover pop success. If anything, I always knew that like I'd have like maybe a cult following, but that's why it stung so much, making music for my people. And then when it comes to like booking and shows and shit, like you're going to do me dirty when you're like paying these straight artists to like come here in our safe area. No. Like, and the way that like I've been treated by a lot of the prides is just, it's so offensive to a sense. Like you expect this level of professionalism and the quality of showmanship and artistry, and you're not going to even attempt to meet me halfway in the middle, or you're going to play with my check. No. So right now I have no intention of performing at any more prides. Like unless the bag is right and like that fucking contract is A-okay. Like, no. But I just like, you know, everything I do, not everything I do, because a lot of what I do is for me, but I do a lot to make sure that like, I feel like our community is presented in a dignified manner or like a serious way, you know, because we haven't had that representation in music, and we still barely have any representation in music, you know, and even with the representation that we have in music, a lot of it is curated by labels, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so there's just, I mean, I'm sorry, I might have just like kind of sped away with the question, but I mean, I'm going to demand respect because I think that's the very least of what could be offered by our community. And as far as dropping the like gay, I mean, obviously I want to be acknowledged by like my peers or my idols in hip hop as just, you know, like he spits, he's a rapper, you know, he's got bars. Like, I already know that there's going to always be the attachment of my sexuality. So like, that's not something that I'm going to be able to escape. So I'm going to ride with it. And if people choose to let the rest of it fall to the sides, it will happen organically.
Yeah. No, I think you make a really valid point, and thanks for kind of sharing about the whole pride scene. I ask because I also have friends who are gay artists themselves, you know, and they don't like the label necessarily because I feel like they feel as though it kind of, you know, boxes them in, and you can't necessarily be taken seriously in that other arena. And like you said, I think so much of it is curated by the labels of any gay artist, doesn't matter what genre you're in, to kind of be like, oh, well, this is the type of person you have to be in order to like fit, you know, the popular, you know, music scene. And so, yeah, I was just curious. And I love the fact that you said you're curating to, you know, your people, which is what, music is about. Right. And hopefully everyone else will, catch on and, start to listen and enjoy, the music that you're creating. I am curious though, rap really was born, kind of in the Black community, right? So do you feel as though it is difficult to come into that and be taken, like you said, not seriously, but, seen for the music that you're doing because of, the title that you kind of bring to the table, if you will, and use it and having to have like your sexuality be on the table in that regard?
Well, like, again, I make music for gay men and, a lot of women that really fuck with it. I never intended or imagined that like me talking about sucking dick or like fucking dudes was ever going to resonate with like straight men and any, like,
Yeah.
So, hip hop as groundbreaking and, politically charged as it was at its birth, has always kind of carried a misogynistic and homophobic narrative with it, and has kind of gone hand in hand with that for a long time. I do think a lot of doors have been knocked down. But that's just a reflection of society as a whole.
Right.
But people aren't not going to give props where props are due. So I will hope that my artistry and my ability to be such a brilliant wordsmith will outshine like any stigma that can be like harbored against me just strictly because of my sex forward image or my brash lyrics. And like, I would hope that someone says, wait, what the fuck that fag say? Let me rewind this real quick. Like,
yeah.
There's a place for me at the table. So
yeah.
Whether I show up on time or I'm late to the party is yet to be determined.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. What's one thing that you've kind of learned about yourself, like you said, being so open and brash and very yourself as an artist, kind of what has being in this industry kind of taught you about yourself that you might not have known prior to getting into music?
What has it taught me? That there's no limit to anything I can't do. Like I remember recording my first like mixtape about 10 years ago, and people were not at all receptive to there ever being a space in hip hop for a gay man. And I can name like not a bunch, not to sound shady, but I can name a good couple MCs that, they out, like, those are my homies. And like, we can out rap a lot of these heterosexual dudes, like easy.
Yeah.
So, I've learned to be fearless, and you can do anything you put your mind to. And I've done it. I've done everything myself, and then now laughing and scoffing at everyone that told me, no, you're crazy, or you're wasting your time. What I was wasting my time is even acknowledging their responses. So
yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious kind of who, I think I know the answer to this, but who has been kind of your biggest supporter or fan, that's really helped you keep on going through, this whole process, not only as you shared, like the pandemic, but then just like your career as a musician as well.
It's hard because there's been so many points where I felt like I've been the only man on the boat, on a boat that's sinking. And I will say, one person that has just always been my cheerleader is Josiah. I can't probably name how many times I've been on the ledge and he's been like, no, come on, you got this. Also, like, to be perfectly honest, me, like, that sounds really, really self-centering, but like, no, because I'll be in the dark and I'll be in the desert alone, and I'll listen back, like, because I mean, like, I get sick of my fucking music. I listen to that shit so much, like, when I'm recording it and I'm writing it. By the time it comes out, I'm just like, fuck this shit. But then I, like, go back and I listen to my discography on a whim, and I'm like, oh, fuck shit, like, I got this, you know, like, I mean, you cannot be the man unless you're a fan of yourself. Like, so at the end of the day, the seasons are going to change and people come and go out of your life. And whether or not those are, you know, friends or fans or whomever, like, the one person that's you've got to make sure has your back is you. Because the minute that's gone, like, your will to be creative is gone too.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's self-centering at all. I think that trust me, I've had plenty of guests on the show that have definitely said, like, me, bitch, like, I'm my biggest supporter and fan. So I think, yeah, you are the one that is in the driver's seat, for lack of a better term, right? And you have to be the one to kind of keep going and try and believe in yourself. But to have someone that supports you, you know, I think is always helpful. You know, like you said, when you're in those dark moments or you kind of can't, you know, go through, to have someone to kind of take your hand and help you, you know, kind of get back in it is great. So I was kind of curious, where did this title of Heartthrob Robb come into play? Because I love it. I think it's so cool, but I probably should have asked that at the top of this interview. But yeah, I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, so originally my, like, stage name was ROB.B, and like, it just kind of got overshadowed by my social handle that, like, was my, like, Instagram handle, because more people knew me by Heartthrob Robb than they actually did by, like, my stage name. And I'm making the transition over officially to have my music listed under that.
Cool.
But that was just a nickname that I got off of, again, circling back to those little star shots from back in the day that, like, you know, like, it was like a nickname that just kind of got carried over and was just kind of a joke. It was, honestly, I didn't take it in any full seriousness, and it became more synonymous than I would have imagined. But yeah.
Nice. That's cool. I like it. What do you do for yourself to, like, get out of your own head and to, you know, maybe it's still in the creative field, but kind of like, that brings you joy and happiness, like, whenever you have the free time or the ability to kind of, you know, kind of quote unquote, take care of yourself, and, you know, that makes you happy?
I mean, there's a couple answers to this. Usually if I need to sort through something, like, the working out or going for, like, a run used to be my refuge. So, like, also, I mean, I do a lot of writing and creative thinking in that scenario, but at the same time, it's also a way for me to wash away and just kind of run those thoughts that won't stop running out of my head. But if I need some peace and tranquility, I always find myself at home at the beach. Just to, like, it's just such a calming, soothing, nurturing place for me. Or, like, to get away to the desert. Those are, like, my two favorite places to just go and escape, and do a little self-care and self-love. But I also love to be surrounded by, like, just people that I really, like, love and care about. There's just, like a recharge, or, like, to just be laughing and to be, like, immersed with just good energy and good people.
Nice.
And usually that comes hand in hand with some good food. So
nice. Do you like to cook yourself? Are you a chef?
No, absolutely not. No, I won't even pretend.
You're not even trying to play.
No.
Yeah. No, it's not easy to be in the kitchen. So I get it.
I can make a great drink for sure.
Oh, hey.
I'm a good mixologist. I hate that term, but I can whip up a good martini or old fashioned, like, yeah. Awesome. But no, I can't cook.
It's all good. Gotta love a good, cocktail. It's always fun. Cool. So I'm curious, kind of this now looking to the future, you know, you kind of shared with us that, next year, you know, you're going to be releasing new music, but, you know, what are some goals that you may have for the next like 3, 5, even 10 years from now, for Heartthrob Robb and your music and your career?
You know, I'm really pushing forward with this next year. I hope to have the couple pots that I'm storing, be ready to serve. You know, I'm not a cook in the kitchen, but I can cook up in the studio. That's for sure.
There we go.
So I got some hot shit coming out, next year. So for the next 3, 5 years, I mean, honestly, in about 5 years, I feel like I will. I mean, I don't think music will never not be part of me. So like, who knows? But like, I would like to switch up genres, maybe. I am playing with that in some sorts with some of the releases that I've got coming out. They're out of my comfort zone, but
got it.
Yeah, I would just hope to go on tour more. I have some things lined up for 2023.
Amazing.
Permitting, my health is allowing me to take full advantage of going on the road. I would just like to be able to focus more on music and just completely immerse myself in it. I'm also looking forward to producing for other artists and help steer them in the right direction and give my ear a wider range. So
very cool. I like that. When you say different genres, I mean, are we talking like way kind of, you know, like country music, or, I mean, if you can share any? I know that you're probably in the creative process right now, but I'm just curious.
Well, there's just so many, like, I love a full spectrum of music, and like hip hop may be like wifey to me. Like, I grew up with like, a big admiration for like pop artists and, R&B artists. And, you know, I listen so much. I like grew up going to rock shows and like emo and screamo and like punk, getting my piercings ripped out, like in the mosh pit. Like, so like I am leaning into a couple genres. But it's kind of an infusion of hip hop. I definitely would like to work with a lot more like R&B singers, because there is something that I used to find really beautiful about like the softness of R&B and it's like the raw, like gutter grittiness of hip hop. And I just think that's such a beautiful play on each other. But yeah, I got some stuff that's like, honestly, it's leaning in it's that when I say I have my hand in so many pots, that's why it's so hard for me to like focus on one. There's definitely something in there for everybody. So
nice. That's awesome.
A little jazz, a little rock, maybe a little country, not like real big country. 'Cause I'm not that yeehaw, but like, there's, like maybe some leaning guitar riffs and whatnot.
Nice. That's awesome. No, I love it. Yeah. I think, music is such a universal thing, right? You can go to any country, you may not speak the language, but you know, their music can kind of pull you into culture and their vibe. So, I love when kind of mixing the two kind of meet paths. So that's dope that you're, you know, doing it and switching it up. So it's not just, about the hip hop. Excuse me. I meant to ask, you know, you are kind of a multifaceted artist. So are you still into photography and, like painting, and are you still doing any modeling? I meant to ask that earlier as well.
Yeah. So actually right before I, had, succumbed to this injury about 6 months ago, I had shot something for Amazon. Ironically enough was like a fitness wellness, type shoot. I am leaning back into modeling, 'cause it's just like, it just doesn't leave. I don't know. It just doesn't leave me alone.
You can't quit me. It just always happens to be in my life, even when I've like tried to, hang it up. So I do a lot behind the camera too. Cause I am a video editor. I'm a graphic designer and a graphic illustrator. Nice.
I do love to do photography. I should probably be like, when I have the opportunity, I haven't really. So one of my big goals is to have a gallery show. Like that's on my bucket list, whether it's art or photography. It's absolutely something that I'm going to accomplish.
Nice.
So I don't see it not being a possibility, that I lean more into that. I used to help out with agency things and, picking out photos for models and stuff. So I'm not gonna have my hand in those. I keep on using this analogy. It's horrible. I love doing anything creative. So like anytime I have free time, I'm drawing or I'm sketching or I'm, doctoring up something on Illustrator or Photoshop. Like, it feeds me.
Very cool. Love it. Yeah, all the creative outlets. And the other thing I want to know is, do you record a lot of your stuff at home, or do you go into a studio and kind of record it? Like, how does that kind of process work for you?
So, I love being in the studio because, like, I love my engineer. He's been with me from day one. Like, that's my dude.
Nice.
Shout out Ian. But during the pandemic, I did drop like a bag on all this recording stuff to do at home. And like I did, and like I have recorded stuff at home over the last 6 months when I wasn't able to travel to the studio. But it's a little bit of both now, because now I'm able to do that portion of it myself. I feel like my workflow is a lot easier when I have my engineer there, and I'm able to just be like, hey, let's run that back. Let's loop it in. Like, can you punch me in here? And then it's, simultaneously able to like switch between tracks, but, for recording purposes. But I feel like there's, so many drafts that sometimes go into recording some things. Like first goes usually on my phone, like just recording on my voice notes. And then I can take it into, I have got a pretty dope home setup, that I recorded a couple songs on, which was good. But there's just something about being in the studio and just just being like completely secluded and just like having that one-on-one, with me and my engineer that I like. It's like a high I can't get when it's just me at home.
Yeah. Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. So looking way to the future, I asked this kind of my second to last question, which is, what would you say to your future self in 15 years from now? If you could say something almost like what the hell are those things called? Like I was going to say a message in a bottle, but no, it's like, a future message for your future self 15 years from now.
Better have no fucking regrets. Not one. Don't look back with any remorse for anything. Live unapologetically, live full-heartedly, and burn the bitch to the ground. Yep.
Nice. That's what's up. And then my last question is really kind of, do you have a motto or phrase that you live by?
Fuck you, pay me. And I feel like
yes.
Every creative should adopt that, because it is so frequently that creatives are not accurately compensated for their creativity. And you should never shortchange yourself, and you should always demand your worth. And so fuck you, pay me is just a beautiful mantra to make sure you get what's yours.
That's so fucking true. Awesome. Well, I think that kind of wraps it up. Let me just double check here. Yeah. So the only thing I want to know is, where can people find you on social media, a website? Where can they, listen to your music?
Heartthrob Robb across all, social media platforms. That's also my website. If you are looking for my music on all streaming platforms, it's currently under ROB.B, and that's ROB.B. But that will be soon changing to Heartthrob Robb.
Fantastic. Well, I really look forward to, and I know that everyone listening, as well as watching, we all look forward to hearing and seeing your visuals, as well as listening to your new music, next year in 2023, and whatever else you come out with, creatively in, the coming years. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for all of your time and, sharing your stories with us. And, we'll see you out in the universe, on the social media and otherwise. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Look forward to gracing you all with my presence in 2023.
Thank you so much for watching and listening to the Creative Lotus Podcast, and a huge thank you to Heartthrob Robb. This week's Buddhist quote of the week is: "The energy of creativity is like a fire that transforms all kinds of obstacles into opportunities for dynamic new growth," by Daisaku Ikeda. Thank you so much for watching and listening to the Creative Lotus Podcast. If you're watching here on YouTube, go ahead and give us that big thumbs up, press that subscribe button, and hit that ding bell for all notifications when new episodes drop. If you like this video, check out this video right here, which will be another full episode of the Creative Lotus Podcast. Until then, let's talk creative on the next Creative Lotus Podcast. Talk to you later. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Creative Lotus Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Zaki. Please go ahead and subscribe, rate us, and write a review, and follow me at Alan Zaki on social media. I look forward to having more amazing creative dialogues on the next episode.